All right, welcome. My name is Adam. This is Empowering Your Sobriety, the Power of Affirmations. Are you using affirmations? Affirmations are profound. We're going to talk a lot about them. This is module 1 of 3. And so buckle your seatbelts because this is truly transformative work. This is going to be an overview of affirmation, and it's a spiritual engineering course. I do Facebook. I have a group called Spiritual Engineering. You can join us there. Or maybe you're seeing this on school, on Sobriety Church or Sober Church. And I love this school community growing. And or maybe you're seeing this on YouTube. Wherever you're coming from, I'm glad you're here. My name's Adam Hudson. I have 14 years of sobriety. I love doing this work. I bring like over $250,000 of educational investment to this work. And so hopefully, I'm confident it will be helpful for you if you stick with us through all 3 modules. Let's get started. The power of affirmations. So module 1, what's included? So I'm going to talk a little bit about framing spiritual disciplines. Spiritual disciplines are the foundation for living well, for creating a fulfilled life. So often we get the order of operations confused. And we're like, I just need a job. Like, you need to practice prayer, meditation, and forms of affirmations, and even to know where the ship is headed. It's sort of like, and that's what happened when I came into recovery 14 years ago. I was just confused. I was disoriented about what I really needed. I was like, I need a job. I need stable housing. I need a girlfriend, blah, blah, blah. And folks in recovery who had walked the spiritual path were like, you need frameworks of spiritual disciplines, accountability, and a plan to move you forward in life because you're very confused about. And that was symptoms of ongoing forms of self-sabotage that I had lived in, forms of neglect that I had not paid attention to. And I needed a healing path, a path of spiritual disciplines. And one of those is affirmations. So we're going to talk about also what are affirmations. We're going to talk about why people struggle with affirmations. And that's going to conclude this module. So without further ado, let's talk about spiritual disciplines a little bit more. So our deepest spiritual traditions have worked with the energies of intention, vision, and mental projection. Think about that. Mental projecting. I mean, like, these traditions have evolved human consciousness. In Western religious history, we refer to these traditional spiritual practices generally by the names of prayer, and in the East, meditation. And in our secular scientific world, we use more clinical and psychological language like self-affirmation theory, or affirmations for short. These legacies are deep and embedded in our DNA. I mean, these are embedded in the way that we socialize and the way that we relate to ourselves and the world and even our environment. So the spiritual disciplines the legacy has brought us into states of rationality where we can apply scientific powers to solve problems in life. I mean, these are the foundational principles upon which all of life rests. And there's a lot I could say about that. There is the fundamental aspects of breath, the fundamental aspects of the more subtler dynamics that are expressed through conscientiousness. And we're going to talk about that through affirmations. So spiritual disciplines, typically, and what I'm going to talk about today is affirmations a lot. So affirmations are primarily used to mentally project, to create a sense of what is called metacognition, or a sense of removal from your normal everyday conscientiousness, so that you can mentally project or envision a future. I mean, even scriptures say, a man without vision shall perish. You know, we know that if a boat leaves the harbor without a compass and without directions, without a course navigated and laid out, the probability of that boat reaching shore is almost zero. But if a boat has a navigation, has a compass, and has the destination set, the probability of that vessel reaching its objective end, reaching its goal, its port, is very, very high. And that's the same thing with what's happening in our own lives. We've got to fundamentally create visions. This is what affirmations are geared to do, to frame out the person we intend to become. They're mentally projecting with our language how that person is to live in the world. So also, I have to mention prayer and meditation. Prayer, primarily petitioning. It's a process of petitioning to God, right? To or if you're in the 12-step realm, like your higher power, and a primary, that's the word I was looking for, a primary spiritual practice, right? Of petition, our Father who art in heaven. It's often a second person because I'm appealing not only to my own powers, right? I'm recognizing that I need more power, and I'm appealing to the powerful spiritual dimension of the Godhead, right? Of the divinity, of Christ incarnate, spiritualized inside it as the Holy Spirit, right? So meditation, often it's interesting how many folks in the West, especially if they're sort of Christian oriented or whatever, that have trouble with meditation, like, oh, that's not Christian or whatever. Turns out within the Christian tradition, there are immense spiritual practices that employ the same techniques that are found in the East. It's just in the East, they sort of migrated in frameworks called meditation, whereas in the West, we call them typically, like in Western Christian traditions, like contemplation or passage meditation. And so meditation, the posture is primarily listening, right? Either through an anchor, a repetition of a word, or through the breath, which is also an anchor. We primarily have a posture of listening so we can receive. So prayer is petitioning and meditation is listening. Now, these are generalities, right? Affirmations is what we're going to work with today. And I think of affirmations as almost like prayer in practice, like practicing prayer, because they're also a sort of a sense of petitioning, but they speak over our lives. So let's talk a little bit more about affirmation. Move to the next slide here. So what are affirmations? Affirmations are a method for overcoming negative thoughts and building self-esteem, increasing gratitude, fulfillment, etc. So a method for creating new states of emotional power. So because you're rewiring, what we're doing with affirmations is functioning physiologically on your brain. It's not just like, woo, it's concretely restructuring the neurological pathways in the brain, literally changing your mind in a process called neurogenesis. And you can research this. I taught psychology for years. Neurogenesis is a real dynamic, forming new neurological pathways in our brain because our brains are changing, and they do a lot of changing, especially early in development. And when humans reach in their early 20s, brain development slows significantly, but neurogenesis is still happening throughout adulthood. And so we can work with those powers of changing our brain, our habits of mind, spiritually, right? So we talked about it scientifically from the physical dimension of neurogenesis and changing emotional states, but spiritually, what you're doing with affirmations is you're waking up. You're self-authoring a new story, enabling your ability. Interesting. Oh, okay. Enabling your ability to think, feel, and do what you've never been able to think, feel, or do before. Affirmations are, in this way, a profound manifestation tool backed by significant psychological research. There are immense ways we struggle with affirmations. I mean, you talk with anyone on the street, they're like, why do I don't practice that sort of crap. Like what works is me going to work, like that's what works. Why would I spend time alone in thought? Right. But you have to understand primarily that the dominating thoughts of your mind shape your behavior, because there's an intimate connection between your mind and your body, your thoughts and your behavior. And so we struggle with affirmations, though. I mean, I struggle with affirmations. Everyone struggles with the forms of practicing spiritual disciplines. And we're going to talk about the 3 pain points of affirmations, like the pain of discipline, memory and emotion, and the cost of belief. We struggle in these 3 ways. So let's talk about each one of them real quickly. So the pain of discipline. Pain is the touchstone of transformation. If you go to any 12-step meeting, you're going to hear the line, pain is the touchstone of spiritual transformation, or some variation of that. And it's true that, talking about the biology of pain, delaying gratification strengthens the brain, muscle growth, etc. So if you want to get stronger, you go to the gym, you lift weights. What's happening is the pain that you're feeling is the breakdown of the muscle tissue. And then on the backside, the healing process means the muscles have to grow in order to heal, and they grow. And that's how strength happens. And that's what happens in every area, every domain of our life. We must go through forms of adversity in order to grow spiritually, mentally, physically, and to cultivate a vision for our lives. And so affirmations are doing that. And it's a struggle to have the discipline to keep coming back, even though we don't see immediate results, because we're a species obsessed with immediate gratification, especially in our current fast-paced world with the social medias that provide us with immediate gratification. Spiritual disciplines slow that process, bring us back into the power of physical change, which is our inheritance, our rite of passage. Also, lastly, pain is a consequence that exists both ways on either side of the discipline. So you can neither get pain through neglect of the spiritual practices and disciplines like affirmations, or you can experience the pain of discipline and the emergence of a new ground of life and experience. Either way, you're going to experience pain. So it's like you might as well choose the pain of discipline. Next up is memory and emotion. So fundamentally, we struggle with belief, right? We don't believe affirmations work. So we resist emotionally committing to the practice of affirmations. It's like, I practiced for 1 week and it didn't manifest $100 million. That's trash. I'm not practicing. It's like, yeah, well, you're very bad at your practice of affirmations and manifestation. So no wonder you didn't magically earn or be given $100 million, right? Emotional congruence, by the way, supports neurogenesis. So many people practice affirmations and they're just blindly, mentally rehearsing words without heart congruence, emotional congruence, feeling the presence of those affirmations in the now. And there's a big, big difference when you speak affirmations, integrating emotional congruence. We'll talk about that in the next module. Also, we remember our failures, right? We remember our failures. So when we tried the practice in the past or similar practices like goal setting, we just goal setting for the new year. Talk about a practice that's gotten more hate like over the past couple of decades. Goal setting, I'm trash. Who would goal set in the new year? It's like, well, you're confusing the practice, like you're bad at it. So it's not the practice, it's that you're bad at it. And so more practice, right? Have you given 10,000 hours? Let's be honest. You practice for 1 month, if that, more like, let's be honest, like a couple days for the 2 weeks, and then you just gave up on your goal setting or your practice of affirmation or whatever spiritual recommitment. This is why every single year our religious traditions embed in ritual and in the calendar times of the year to recommit to our practices, like Lent and Ramadan and other forms of spiritual traditions that interweave ritualistic practices so that we can get back to the spiritual practices of building a relationship with God, with our spiritual disciplines. So also the feelings of falsehood, it's important to note, like a lot of people struggle with affirmations because they're like, I don't even believe this isn't real. I'm talking about how I'm one of the greatest speakers on the planet. Well, that's an illusion. That's just deluded thinking. That's like a psychological neurosis in and of itself. And it's like, calm down. So obviously that is not the objective, to obsess about, meditating or ruminating on delusions. That is not this practice. So, but many people slip into that sense of feeling a fraud. And again, it's all about practice. The more that you practice, the more that you release those negative connections to the practice, and the more that you're able to enter in and have mind-heart coherence as you're practicing, and it gets more and more powerful. And then it starts to shape your behavior. So the order of operations, right? The order of operations. I reshape my mind to then reshape my behavior. And there's a dynamic interplay there. Okay, let's talk about the last hang up. So, I need to move myself over here. So the cost of belief. This, I think, is one of the most profound. I think unconsciously, this is primarily why people don't practice spiritual disciplines, because spiritual disciplines will change your character. They will change your life. You will reshape your relationships, your professional relationship to the world, your ability to navigate stress. You'll reshape your physical body. True transformation comes through spiritual practice. And most people are afraid of truly changing. So the cost of belief. Affirmations regularly practiced with significant emotional congruence manifests in physical reality. It's true power, right? To practice affirmations is to see them manifest in physical reality. I can't tell you that, this is literally unfolding in my life. I've been practicing affirmations for years, and I keep manifesting what I'm practicing, when I'm speaking over myself, as I build mind-heart congruence through the practice. Transformation always requires the death of a former version of ourselves. There is a cost becoming the person you dream. I remember when I was really suffering from addiction, I had 14 years of sobriety. I was so afraid of putting down the drugs and the drinking, because I knew I was going to be something completely radically different. And I didn't want to lose my former life. And that's it. These practices cost you parts of your former life, parts of your character. They change your character. And that is legitimately frightening, because we don't know what's on the other side of that. So most do not want to pay the cost, because the fear of leaving what they know is greater than the dream of becoming what they envision. So this concludes the end of our first module. I would love to hear your comments and questions below. I'm happy to engage with you. Please share this. If this is found this on YouTube, or you found this on my spiritual engineering site, or even on school, please share this. Tell others if it's helpful to you. We're going to go on to the module 2 out of 3, talking about the power of affirmations and the method for these affirmations. And I build a method based upon integral theory. So we're going to talk about what that is. But first, I just want to say also a selfless plug, I'm here to be of service. And I'm here to help you remain accountable. I do one-on-one coaching. You can connect with me through the school page, or through my Facebook spiritual engineering page, or you can just book online. You can find me on Psychology Today. And I help people with these practices formulate specific affirmations that truly are directly connected to the intimacy of the problems they face and what they want to overcome. So I love doing this work. You can also find me on my website, adampson.com. And if you haven't heard it yet today, you are loved. Thanks for joining us. I'll see you in the second module, module 2 of 3.